All right. I see you're sabotaging my efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in control of this, so I can't see how few of you there are actually watching this, but I'd like to welcome you to episode 27 of PHP Town Hall. We've got a lovely lineup for you today. We've got Ben Edmonds out on the West Coast here. We got Josh Lockhart of Slim and PHP the Right Way fame. He's hailing from North Carolina. Did I get that right, Josh?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, Josh is drinking out of a TARDIS today, so that's something we're going to be quizzing that on the after program today. Meanwhile, we also have Phil Sturgeon, still locked out of the United States, but coming in at 1 a.m. in British time. So he's up with some apple cider for us this evening. And then yours truly, Jeremy Mikola, reporting live from, I'm just going to say New York, but I'm actually in New Jersey, but don't tell anyone that. So New York City. Okay, I'll hand it over to Ben and Phil. Thanks for letting me do this introduction.
That's all right, professionally done. We haven't had one done that well since Cal Evans was on the show. you two should do a podcast at some point. That's wonderful. The internet would explode.
You could totally just take this one if you want. We're both tired of doing this.
It's the last episode.
How about we just sign off and it's
Excellent. You've been great, everybody. That's it. You're leaving a high note. That's
like I said, after the show notes we got back from Jeremy, I feel like we should just pipe it through the say command and go to the pub. Like I feel like that basically covers it.
Yeah, those are nice notes.
Yeah, so this time we're actually a little bit more prepared, and I've actually got 7 things written on this piece of paper. So I feel like this is going to be an absolute winner. So first of all, guys, thanks for coming on the show. I've been wanting to get both of you on for a while. But you were too busy being big shot rock stars or something. I can't remember why.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Information. Why us specifically together?
Yeah.
I couldn't figure that out. I've never met Josh. I've never seen this guy before. I've seen him online, but that's it.
Do you want a bullshit answer, or do you want the?
No. What are the gears going in your head? Was like, I got to get Josh and Jeremy specifically on
We're
the same
trying to set you guys up. We feel like you would, really, really bond.
You both look kind of Swedish, and we thought that would be together.
Hey, are you living in Phil's apartment too?
I'm actually in Phil's apartment right now.
Private jokes for nobody but us.
So the actual reason was we tried to get you both on, or we wanted to get you both on, and it never happens, and so we put you together.
Magic is going to happen.
Efficiency. Yeah.
The algorithm. I trust the algorithm.
Yep.
Yeah. So to get this party started, that's a really lame introduction. I'm sorry. By the time I finish this next can, I'll actually stop saying stupid things. We all hope. So from episode 25, which went live actually today on the day of recording, which is an interesting thing, all of our post-editing we have to get through. One of the things that came from that discussion by Kayla Daniels was a website called Code Manifesto. If any of you guys seen this website?
I was at her presentation at Laracon.
Ah, sweet. Yep. Tell me how the presentation went.
Well, she opened up with an apology, for which I had no context for. So presumably that was something during episode 25. But she gave it was part of the lightning talk end of the day. I think somebody bailed out, so they had a bunch of small sessions. So she was on stage for about 10-15 minutes, and she walked through, I guess, the initial draft of this, which she said was just originally her work, and then she said Phil Sturgeon added a bunch of stuff to it, probably down near the bottom there. And she kind of took the backstory.
The douchebaggery clause? That's all I remember.
No, she was quite respectful. So I think she was presenting the Code Manifesto. It was very meta because she was acknowledging the Code Manifesto as she was talking about Phil Sturgeon. So there was more respect than you'd expect. But she went through her story about she says I'm not in the profession that I want to be in. So it was that was right after Greg's. I think it was unless maybe that was the day after. I'm kind of mixing things up. But it was that talk and then Greg's talk on depression for that whole Laracon. People were those were tremendously powerful talks that had nothing to do with programming, but totally about the culture and community. And I'm glad that they were presented. So.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was going to say the way that it basically works in the PHP community is you're not allowed to create any sort of website unless my name goes in the credits, as Josh has worked out.
I've learned that.
That's why you always submit those spaces in your commits, right? You just put spaces all over the web.
Yeah, I've white spaced half of the PHP community.
Was that the whole point of PSR2? Was that? Was just
That
to
is
get
literally the whole point.
Yeah, just checking.
It's just so I could run around and pull request people to make it PSR2 compatible and pretend I did something useful. But no, I think the one that I managed to get in there kind of via a few DMs was reactions require grace. Angry responses are valid, but abusive language and vindictive actions are poisonous. When something happens that offends you, handle it assertively. She used lots of long words. I didn't do this at all. But be respectful. Escalate reasonably and try to allow the offender an opportunity to explain themselves and possibly correct the issue. And that's something that luckily a couple of people have since thought, oh yeah, I could maybe do that. Like if I see this thing that I disagree with, I don't have to flip a shit about it. I don't have to go mental. If someone says something that offends me, I don't have to like scream and report them to their boss. I could maybe just say, oh, actually that was offensive, and they'll probably say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to be. We weren't actually talking to you or about you, or didn't mean to be offensive, and we can all kind of be better people together instead of going mental over nothing. So that was the one that I half was involved with, but these are all generally really good rules. It's just, again, don't be a dick to people is the overriding theme.
What I like about it really is that it doesn't seem to a lot of efforts like this seem to try to police people and kind of be this overarching force, and it's more of just kind of an agreement of, like you said, don't be a dick. But there's nothing in it to like shun people that don't follow it exactly. And it seems very kind of inclusive, where the real goal behind it is to help people, not to exclude people that might have issues.
Yeah, and I think a nice thing about it too is that she explicitly says if you're going to send a pull request, send values rather than explicit rules, that kind of constrain people. And I think that's a big helpful way to approach it.
So I guess we were talking about this a little bit, like in some of the emails before tonight, but where I was saying some of like the PRs that I saw within the last week, I'm like baffled how people use their real identities and like spout this garbage, or like whether it's trolling or like ranting or just people like maybe they're legitimately angry but they're like cursing up a storm and using all sorts of derogatory language. The fact that they do that with their real identities, so like I kind of expect it in like an anonymous forum, but seeing this like on GitHub, you don't. It's just common sense. Like, why would you act like this? This is your professional image.
Yeah, and it's not even just like profanity, because I mean, shit,
No, I mean like Phil uses profanity, but generally he's quite
But
professional.
like, yeah, but there's just this hatred behind the language used. For those watching specifically, we're talking about the recent Django thing that happened. So yeah.
What was the recent Django thing that happened?
There was Go ahead, Jeremy.
It was a PR to rename, originally just in the documentation, to rename master-slave references and all the database documentation to leader-follower. And I think in hindsight, there was like a lot of garbage in that whole pull request and a lot of like Me Too comments and stuff like that. But there was actual real discussion where people agreed, well, primary and replica is probably like the thing that makes more sense, because leader and follower really has no computational backing. It was just like a safe alternative from the existing words. Yeah, but that brought out like a whole spiel of like just crap posts, and it's like not threaded conversation. It's just like one post after another. The other things that come to mind was like, I know like last year there was like similar language changes in like CodeIgniter. There was a PR for that. I remember like Raphael Domes was he was like, I'm done with this. But it just comes at like every now and then, like some PR makes it into Hacker News or Reddit or something, and then everybody piles on, and it just goes way beyond whatever probably the original two people that were involved with it intended.
Yeah. And I'm wondering why this is kind of seems to be specific to programming communities, because I've been picking up photography as a hobby lately, and you've got the whole master-slave nomenclature for external
camera controls.
Yeah, and so it's a similar thing there, and I've never really heard of any kind of similar arguments in photography. So
shared this on Twitter that night. That was when I first saw the Django pull request. I was immediately reminded in 2003. There was an article on Slashdot of, I think it was like LA County was saying we're not going to do business with hard drive vendors because of the master slave like DMA settings or whatever the parallel ITA stuff. And this was like the same fleshed out conversation from literally 12 years ago, 12 years ago. And it's a cycle of the same kind of people spouting the same kind of vitriol and on both sides. And there's like reasonable arguments, but they're buried inside the people that are just like at each other's throats.
Yeah, I mean, I really understand both sides. The language can be offensive. It's probably time to move past it, seriously. But it doesn't necessarily mean whether someone takes it. I mean, it does have a farther-reaching meaning behind those words.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's a sensitive subject, I guess, for a lot of people. My vote would be just change it. Why offend people if you don't have to and still have the same meaning behind the words?
I feel like it's another one of those situations where it's mostly offensive in America. I mean, there'll be other countries that it does affect, but it's not an international problem, I wouldn't have thought. Like, I've never heard of any sort of issue like that in the UK. I know the UK was involved in the whole slave trade. Bristol, unfortunately, had a very strong background there. But that sort of terminology isn't really offensive over here. And once again, these projects are international. So to try and change international projects just because it can or cannot offend people in America might be a little bit tricky. But either way, whether it's a problem to you or a problem to other people, yeah, you definitely don't need to be a dickhead about the whole situation.
Well, America is the center of the world, Phil.
True,
Yep.
true. That's why I'm trying to get back there, because everything I'm doing here is just pointless. Why am I not in the only country that matters?
there's obvious historical references, but then there is like an ongoing slave trade today that doesn't get a lot of press, but it's like children and women and stuff.
True, yeah.
Like they're certainly different than like historical like 18th, 19th century slave trade, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Hold on, there's a plane passing. I'm gonna mute myself.
Wow, do you live at the airport?
There's an Air Force base like a mile away.
Ben Edmonds he's on a layover right now.
This is my cabin in the plane. It's really
Representative of the effort that you're putting into this broadcast, I think.
I just feel like your address might start with Terminal 3.
Are you Tom Hanks? Are you?
Have you seen that movie? Where the
Yeah,
guy
that's
lives
a
in the
great movie.
airport? That's what's
Great
happening.
So moving on. On to the next interesting point is that Fargo is wonderful. Let's talk about that for a little while. No.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm all caught up with that. I actually had never seen the original movie until I was on my way to, I think it was Lone Star, is when I started watching Fargo, the TV series, and I got the movie as well to watch beforehand, and I'm loving how they like subtly reference each other, even though it's not the same exact storyline.
So I've never seen this. Convince me to watch it.
Fargo, the movie?
Either.
It's
TV
what do you?
series.
Weird, awkward, kind of comedy, brutal, gruesome, murder, mystery, drama. It's crazy. It's like it's an English
True
comedian.
story.
It's true story. And it's like an English comedian doing this really weird, like Minnesotan accent, which is just hilarious for me to watch because I know.
It's like going to Midwest PHP with more murder. Really.
There was some murder in the first place.
Bill, who are you talking about? Martin Freeman?
Yes. Yeah, he's doing a really interesting accent there.
Yeah.
Did you say Martin or Morgan?
Martin.
That would be cool if Morgan Freeman
No,
did it.
they only make a season of Sherlock like once every 5 years, so he has a lot of free time
It's true.
to make other series. And unlike the silly British broadcasting, the series here is more than 3 freaking episodes or 6 episodes. I don't know what you guys do over there.
That's not a British rule. That's just Sherlock being a bag of dicks. They only ever seem to record like 3 episodes. I'm like, oh, a new season's out, and then I finish it in.
I remember like British Office was 6 episodes a season. What is that? Come on.
I don't think they had many.
Top
ideas.
Gear is 7. That's nothing.
True. I'm starting to notice a pattern.
Well, you have to think they have like 400 vacation days a year, so they got to fit it in on like their
A lot
two working
of
days.
bank holidays. Derek
that's not
Derek is
exciting.
frequently on holiday.
We get 7 bank holidays, and I haven't had a single one of them off until the other day because I keep working for American companies. So on English bank holidays, they're like,
7
yeah, you're in America, and then
7 is
on American
metric.
bank
What's that in
holidays-
American numbers? It's like 40.
I think it's 9.5. Actually, for the last bank holiday was on Monday, and I went to a small town called Tewkesbury, and we watched people running up hills with bags of wool on their back. and that's meant to represent in the olden days when they used to run up the hill with a sheep to impress the local women. They can't carry sheep anymore, so they've just got a sack. Anyway, fuck it.
So, before the show when we said sometimes Phil talks for a while and no one cares, that's a good example right there of when we should
That
start
was-
waving our hands.
Oh,
That's actually way off topic. That's
okay, well, luckily, you can edit stuff. I just thought that was going to be quite funny. So the next thing I want to talk about was...
Do you have viewer stats? Do we see the attendance rising or falling as a direct
Yeah.
correlation?
I don't think there's anybody left. Yeah.
I think my mum's watching upstairs.
Careful.
Please don't
So-
show your ass again then.
Sorry, we can't seem to get this one started. But yeah, the Fargo was mostly a joke, and that's going to get edited out. But Josh, while I've got you here, I really want to talk to you about Slim, because obviously it's a pretty cool framework that might not be getting as much press these days as Laravel, because it's everyone loves Laravel. But what are you doing with? Yeah, damn it. What are you doing with Slim, and what's coming up in Slim 3?
Well, it's been on a bit of a hiatus lately as far as development is concerned. Been a little bit busy, with life and such. But version 3 is going to be coming up sometime. I know a lot of people have been asking me when, but when it's ready. A lot of cool stuff in it. I think one of the most important things I've been doing is converting everything to user interfaces. Instead of coding to a Slim-specific class, coding to an interface, and that way it can be infinitely more extensible than it is now. That's the biggest change. Lots of little cool stuff that I put in that you'll see it in a little bit, but yeah, it's coming along pretty well. I mean, I don't know what to specifically to say, but
Does it have facades? Is the question that everybody wants to know.
that's there is
does,
an extras
actually.
add-on for facades. Yeah,
I
did not write it.
Did I share the little side project me and David Stanley did a couple months ago? We
You
wrote
added facades to Aura.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was there a bad pull request with a lot of bad comments back and forth?
No, actually, Harry or Hari, whatever his name is, the other.
The Indian guy.
Yeah,
I've seen that
he liked it. So there we go.
Is he a maintainer of Aura?
Yeah, he is. Paul didn't
okay.
say anything, so I imagine he's going to stab me next
Okay.
time we meet at a conference. But
He's more of the 400 yards away with a rifle kind
Yeah,
of
he'll
guy.
snipe you. He has actual experience with that.
But yeah, I love Slim. For those who want to check it out, it's really lightweight, so it's more like I guess just really light stack. So like Sinatra.
I wouldn't even say
kind of
stack. Yeah, exactly like Sinatra.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the kind of the minimal code you need to kind of receive an HTTP request and route it to the appropriate code, execute the
You're
code,
talking
and send. Go ahead.
We're talking about Slim or Aura?
Slim right
Back to
now.
Slim. Back to
Slim, right, okay.
Keep up, man. Keep up.
Yeah, we use it at my day job for all our API stuff. It's
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I use it like every day at work. I definitely dog food it, but yeah, lately I've actually been using it to build stuff rather than develop Slim itself. So I'm hoping to kind of get back to it here in probably the next few weeks.
That's good to
because you
know.
hate your users.
Say what?
Because you hate your users.
Yeah, they're the worst.
So
Suckers.
something that a lot of people kind of, when they're getting used to Slim or when they're looking at it, they kind of hit the middleware system, and the middleware seems like something really powerful. But for the average person that has no idea what it is, and I'm going to throw myself in there, what are middlewares and how do you use them?
Okay, so I got the term from looking at kind of the rack infrastructure in the Ruby world, and basically it's some code that sits in between when the HTTP request comes in, and you run the middleware that kind of sits and wraps around your app, and you can add multiple layers of wrappers around the core Slim application, and you can execute middleware code. I really don't like that word, but you can execute this middleware code before your app runs, and then eventually, as the the response comes back out through the middleware layers after the app runs. So it's kind of like an onion. I like to describe it like an onion. Like you work your way in through each layer and hit the core app, and then work your way back out. So it gives you a lot of freedom to really manipulate the request and response and anything else around your app that you'd like.
Now, Slim has its own middleware, right? Have you looked at
Yep.
Stack?
I've looked at Stack PHP, but it's coded to rely on the
Symfony.
Symfony, right? And so there's
Shocking.
really not, yeah, there's not much I can do with it. So I've started using kind of my own implementation, and I know that Aura recently started working with my middleware implementation. So I'm not sure what they intend to do with it, but I'll be keeping an eye on that.
Something else
you
needs
have
a
your own-
facade.
Yeah, there you go.
Josh, you have your own request response objects?
I do, and that's kind of an interesting thing that I've been kind of struggling, pulling back and forth with. Is I started Slim kind of right before a lot of this whole componentization stuff started really taking force, and so now like I'm thinking like, well, should I start supporting maybe using Aura's request and response or Symfony's request and response objects? And then you start replacing a lot of these different things with components, and then you kind of lose your identity of what exactly is Slim. It's just kind of a collection of these components. I'm sure a little bit of that will happen. How much and where, I'm still kind of playing and toying with that idea.
I'm pretty sure the first time I heard about Slim was Ed Finkler's micro PHP Manifesto. I think he called you out as like a charming example.
Well, Ed is he's a cool guy, and I've talked with him, and he loves having zero dependencies. I think that's really why he prefers Slim over, say, like Silex. You install Silex, and you're like, hey, this really small little framework, and then it has like these boatloads of dependencies that it pulls down. And Slim is kind of right now, it's all self-encompassing little thing. And so version 3 is actually maybe going to be using Guzzle Stream. That's kind of the first third-party dependency that I've kind of put into Slim. I'm going to be using Composer, obviously, for that. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes over with the user base. I'm not sure if they're going to like it or hate it, so we'll find out.
I haven't found anyone that has anything bad to say about Guzzle.
Yeah, same here. No, I love it.
Totally crossed the fan club, cult, whatever boundaries may exist across different frameworks and libraries. Everyone's like, oh, Guzzle's amazing.
It just seems to remain completely neutral. Yeah, when most people are kind of arguing about it, everyone's just like, no, why would you not use Guzzle? Of course you'd use Guzzle.
Well, that's because Dowling is really just not active as a public figure, so no one knows that he's a jackass.
Actually, we have evidence of
a former guest, I would say he's a nice guy.
I know. Well, Jeremy Lindblom does most of the public representing of Guzzle, sings all the theme songs and everything, and he's like, I mean, you can't say anything bad about that guy. Come on.
Where do we hear the theme song?
That was at PHP Tech, actually.
I mean,
he's saying Guzzle to the... Somebody has a video of it, but he's saying Guzzle to the theme of some Journey song. It was actually outstanding.
So, to the viewers, if anyone can get me a copy
that footage, just get that footage immediately. Somebody
get
on
the
that.
footage.
There's 2 people listening right now. What are you?
We will play it on the show.
10
Jeremy
bucks
will sing along with it.
That's impressive. So, Josh, actually, another question for you coming in from IRC. You mentioned kind of Silex and Slim. What would you say the major differences between Silex and Slim? Not which one's better or worse, but like what are the kind of the objective differences between the two frameworks and their approaches?
Sure. I think their kind of objective and goals are largely the same. Basically, to build a small web application or an API using the minimal tool set necessary, kind of a really lower level tool set, so that you don't have to pull down a lot of these unnecessary dependencies. And I'll probably throw out Laravel. You're welcome, Taylor. That has a lot of these extra stuff that kitchen sink stuff that you probably don't need, and it's just overhead. And Slim and Silex both kind of toss those aside. Now the main difference I think is that I touched on this a little bit earlier, is that Slim is kind of currently a self-contained entity. It currently doesn't have any third-party dependencies at all, for better and for worse. That may change ever so slightly soon. But with Silex, obviously, it depends on a lot of the Symfony Foundation components, and it'll pull some of those down too. That's the major difference. And I know that I don't know if Jeffrey Way said this or if someone else did. They were basically recommending Silex for the Symfony Foundation behind it, and some people like that, some people don't. I think that's kind of the major difference to point out. But the end goal is largely the same.
Sorry.
You muted
Since there's an opening in the conversation, I just want to point out that Taylor Otwell's dessert is currently SPF 35. I don't know what that means, but
What?
Taylor Otwell, so we should pay attention to it.
Sorry, the reason for the pause and the reason that I didn't just hear what you said was that somebody was sending me the video.
We got it.
Jeremy, yeah, we got it. I'll see if I can play it in the show in a second. But what did you just say there, Jeremy?
I was just saying Taylor Otwell, whatever he's eating for dessert is SPF 35.
Oh, excellent.
I don't even know what that means.
I have no idea what that means. So
Yeah. I'm sorry.
do I how do I play a YouTube video in the is it Cameraman that I use?
Would I be remiss if I said there's an app for that?
Menu.
I believe that there is an app for it, but I'll be
well, on the
damned
left
if I know
side,
how it works.
there's a YouTube button at the very bottom on the left-hand bar that opens up right between
Yeah,
Google
there's-
Effects and the control room. I don't have access to the control room, but I assume you guys do.
It's a red
well,
circly thing with a play button.
Should we not do this?
No, let's
Is that,
do
is
it.
that gonna do
Why
it?
would you not do this? Why would you even ask that question?
Well, I'm trying to work out how in the hell I don't see
Okay.
a YouTube button. I'm sorry, so that's just not there.
You killed my camera.
Now,
Yeah, I can do it.
do you have the link?
I got it. I'm pasting it in right now.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
You got it?
Yeah.
Or am I doing it?
No, I'm doing it. It needs my
Okay.
permission because I'm fancy and in control.
Alright.
Oh. Hang on, I'm going through the Google OAuth 2 pro.
PHP Bard. Sorry, I mean Jeremy Lindblom just told me that what the YouTube. Oh, so you guys missed it. None of you guys were at Tech, were you?
No.
So we got some sleuthing done, and I busted wide open these novelty accounts.
Oh, really? So
We
read them
uncovered
off.
about five and a half of these things.
Did you get PHP
all
drama?
there.
'Cause that's the only
Yes.
one I care about.
That is
Actually-
Phil, right?
I actually paid $5 for that information.
No, Phil is actually PHP jerk. It's just been revealed on the town hall.
No, I really wish that I started.
You
any
were
of these
totally
accounts.
PHP jerk. I don't believe you, sir.
Me? No, I was none of them.
His
I've got
first name
DMs.
is Phil. Who else
And
is named
the last
Phil?
name is Jerkola, so that's
Seems fair. I actually have DMs.
Jerkowski.
I have DMs between me and most of these different fake accounts.
That
So
proves
unless I've been
nothing.
chatting to myself. So, who are the accounts that you have?
so we were able to get PHP Hugs,
Yeah.
PHP Bard, Symphony Borat.
Was Hugs ever a question? I thought that was public knowledge.
What,
I didn't know.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know who Hugs was.
Sorry, I don't live in an airport, so I have other things to do with my time to do this kind of research. PHP Drama, which I reluctantly had to pay cash money for, and then there was PHP Gossip was also there.
Did you
And-
buy the drama information from?
Sorry, PHP Douche was also in attendance, but we did not figure out who that was.
I don't think anyone cares who it was.
No, that's one of those rogue accounts.
That guy can fuck off.
I
good.
paid Matt
Okay.
Frost. I paid Matt Frost $5.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah. Because he was the only one I knew that knew.
Did that come with a
And,
gag clause, or
He's
can you
lucky
tell?
he agreed to it before I reached for the 20, so he missed out on $15.
I will pay you PayPal you $50 right now to review this on the show.
Do you have Venmo? I'll send you some Venmo money.
I do have Venmo. I don't know if this is the appropriate venue to reveal this information.
$55.
I don't want to burst anyone's bubbles.
Listeners,
$56.
IRC, how many donations do we have? Let's get
All I wanna
Cheating
say
your
is-
funds.
Come
I was extremely disappointed.
Can we get the $65 IRC? No.
I will send you this basically useless iPad that only has Wi-Fi.
I will send you some of my warm and flat ciders.
Josh,
I'm not
what do you
saying
got?
anything.
Josh, you have another TARDIS mug? I'll trade you a MongoDB mug.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. It's a fair exchange.
Okay, so I've got this video working. I
Oh, you do have
reckon,
the video working. Excellent. Okay.
Maybe. Hang on.
I just
no,
want to say, Lindblom has an excellent singing voice.
Worst comes to worst, and I can just hold my iPad in front of the screen.
Wait, I got it. Go. Yes.
Someone in IRC says PHP drama is Rasmus. I have $5
The ultimate troll.
that says no, absolutely not. He could be PHP jerk though. Or quite possibly. I don't know. I just want to point out that it is 2014 and we cannot play a YouTube video.
Is it not playing currently?
No,
No,
on
there it is.
No.
I hear it now.
It's
I can
playing.
hear it.
It's not showing.
What is this capture app?
This is much better than I thought it was going to be.
Are you watching it by yourself right now?
Apparently. Say, Jeremy, how's it going?
Pretty good. I think this is the part where I go like this and then we change the topic.
That's really loud. It's so loud.
Okay. You should probably just add it in post-production then. All right, it's come to we're adding mustaches.
I don't know how to make this stop. There we go.
How-
Oh, I've actually
This
just.
is really the 27th episode.
It won't stop. We're gonna have
guy.
to do some editing on this. I only just found the volume control after I finished playing it. That was just aggressively loud for the last 5 minutes.
I actually did not hear anything.
None of you heard anything.
It was like a prancing Swedish lad. It was just the whispers of footsteps.
Well, that whole section is going to get edited out. So
Please.
Well, Ben's got a monocle, so I feel like that saves the day.
He's more British than you now.
Don't make me go get my monocle. Well, okay, so we're just going to edit the fuck out of that, and I apologize to everyone.
Does the monocle come with your citizenship?
No, you have to level up through Britishisms to get the monocle. But when I move into America, I have to give it back. That's how that works. I'm too tired to make jokes.
I can't even tell the difference. It looks the same.
That's an impressive beard right there.
Hey, we found Matt Frost's beard.
Is that where he gets it from? That beard's fucking impressive. I'm not entirely sure.
He doesn't have it anymore. It's
He shaved
sad. He
everything.
shaved it today.
Oh, really?
I was
Shaved
very
his
disheartened.
eyebrows, cut his eyelashes. It's pretty creepy.
I want Matt Frost and Zach Kitzmiller to meet up and have a beard off, but if he's got rid of it, then that's just lost. So, never mind.
No, he and Chris Harches shaved off their. Well, Chris left a T for testing on his goatee,
Oh, I saw that.
Nice, nice.
which I previously
sold
photoshopped. So I'm glad to see that he's actually come around and decided to sport it in real life.
I actually didn't even realize you photoshopped that. I thought he did it as a joke.
No, not the thing. Today was real. The Photoshop was from
previous
previous
one.
slides. Yeah, because I got tired of paying royalties for that other photo.
I've used that photo. I think everyone's used that photo.
Everyone's used that. I put it in lightning talks for Pete's sake.
Excellent. Well, so Ben, we've got to get this shit back going on the road.
Yeah, what's next on your
I can't
notepad?
use
So,
words.
Thanks
Ben,
for joining
can
us for our last episode.
I have a notepad, but it's
Next,
blank.
Ben, can you introduce the topic of PHP the right way and ask Josh what's going on, and we can edit this whole shit show out.
Why don't we just leave it? It's been awesome.
I think it's fantastic.
We probably will. We probably will just leave it. We're lazy, but
See, we constantly talk about editing, and I don't actually edit any of this stuff out. You don't listen to them after they're up.
I ignore them and I hope they go away.
All right, serious time, people. Stop smiling, Josh.
Trying.
All right, PHP the Right Way. So both you and Phil are involved in this, right? So what's the idea behind it, and why does it have such an assholey name?
Yeah, I've got a lot of crap behind that. So the point is, obviously if you Google for PHP, and a lot of beginners do, there's a lot of old, not helpful, out-of-date information. And so on a whim, one afternoon, I was like, I'm going to build this site, and I was like, holy crap, phptherightway.com domain is available, so I bought it, and put up this really, really simple, just kind of list that just kind of hit on some big bullet points for what's considered the quote-unquote right way to code PHP nowadays, and then people like Phil jumped on, and
I mean, it
went
wouldn't
from
have been a
there.
real project if Phil didn't submit a PR.
That is true. That is true. So Phil was begging me to get his name in the credits. So I was like, I'll toss him the bone.
I even have like the most self-serving PR ever to the right way.
That's true.
Just to add my book.
Yeah, you're trying to get me in trouble. I was scared to pull that one in, and
Yeah, there have been a few like political problems with trying to get PHP the right way done. I mean, I first got involved with it because I saw it pop along, and you already had a lot of the website done. Like you were mostly done when I came along, or at least at a very early level you were. And then I started adding a bunch of content myself, just sending PRs, and eventually you were like, just fucking have access. I'm bored of merging your PRs, which is how most people get access to anything.
Brute force.
When you say
Did Phil do the British translation?
There were a few pull requests to take use out of all the different words.
That was an issue. That was an issue when Phil started. He kept on using these Britishisms, and I was like, no, we got to do this American English.
And then you park by the lorry, and then.
Yeah. But no, it's taken off really well. It's got like a ton of people who've joined, and some of the who's who of PHP have really contributed, and it's got a lot of good information. Now, whether or not you consider it the right information is your call, but it's good information, and so yeah, and it's
This is
just
like
taken off.
the pragmatic side of PHP sadness. It's like, these are all your problems, and this is...
Pretty much, yeah. This is what's kind of shitty, and this is how you avoid that ever being a problem. Like, sure, you can have these really weird situations if you try doing, empty array equals on a fucking string or something, but don't do that. Quite simple advice. There's lots of other things in there, like using the old MySQL extension it used to be kind of a bad idea because it might go away in the future, and then recently I changed that text to, it's definitely going, stop fucking using that thing, it's going to die soon. And then in another 3 months I'm going to be like, I don't know why you're even trying to use it, it's not there anymore, you're a fucking idiot. But over time it's like an evolving document of like, this is how you do things properly. And then every now and then it's like, oh, actually that was wrong, but it improves over time. Instead of being like a disparate series of 100 different blog articles, mostly written by twats. So we have this kind of centralized repository of all of the PHP community's information instead of some of the other shit that's around, like W3 schools and stuff like that. It's fucking awful. It was awful 10 years ago when I was learning how PHP worked, and it's just it's exactly as awful as it was then, because it hasn't changed in the slightest.
Yeah, I actually really like it because it's a good resource that's sort of neutral to just send to people when they have questions.
WC3 schools or PHP the Right Way?
Both, actually. I still get like a ton of the email and just things from Coding Matter days, which is just full of the noobs, basically. So I'll get just tons of emails every week asking for like most basic PHP help ever, and I can just send it the right way and know that they get pretty good information for all the basic questions.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's doing pretty well. It's on page 1 of Google for PHP. So, and we haven't
question for Josh here.
Yeah.
So you obviously wrote the initial draft of this, but before the PRs, so since all the PRs started coming in, other people contributed, what would you say is one contribution that stands out where you actually learned something significant that someone else shared here?
Where I learned something significant.
Like somebody submitted an article section or something, you're like, oh.
Well, let me skim through it here. A lot, I will say that. I think probably a lot of the testing section, because like I haven't really... I test, but I haven't really focused on learning a lot of like.
Be careful, Josh.
We all test.
We all test, yes. But don't be programmer's gonna find me. But no, I think I've learned the most from that section. Specifically, like some of the links to the other testing tools and whatnot. I'm very familiar with PHP Unit. I love PHP Unit and use it all the time. But like the hat and some of the other.
Sorry, PHP Unit by Sebastian Bergman, you mean?
Yes, that is correct.
It's important that we always add the byline.
Are there two?
No. But yeah, that's probably what I would pick. Yeah.
I feel like some of the security stuff's been pretty powerful. There was security. There's a section about password hashing and data filtering, and I can't remember specifically who wrote it, but like Josh already mentioned, like whenever we have whenever we identified a section that needed to be added, me or him or somebody would go out and try and find the very best person to try and talk to about that. So we had.
Was Anthony involved?
I don't think Anthony Ferrer was involved, but it was basically whoever the second best person is. No, it was it was somebody else that knew a lot about password hashing.
One of the lesser Anthonys.
Yeah, one of his clones that he wheels out for fares and handshakes. But
he did say on Twitter that he is interested in helping, so you need to hit him up for that.
Absolutely. Well, he was unfortunately one of the people at the start that was like, I hate this whole project because of the name. And then eventually he kind of came around to it, and I basically we argued logic over beer
Still there, Phil?
about. Yeah, I'm still here. Did I cut out for a bit there?
No, you're good.
You're good.
Okay. We argued logic for a while over a couple of beers, and eventually we got there. And I think he's a big fan of the idea now. As long as we aren't telling people this is the only way to do it, and I think over time it has evolved to be like, here are 4 or 5 ways that you could do it, and here's 3 ways that you fucking should not even touch with a barge pole. Like, don't do it those 3 ways. Do it one of these 4 ways, and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like the one true way, as written by whoever. It's So yeah, password hashing and data filtering is really good. We got basically someone who wrote a blog article about comparing about 5 different dependency injection systems. He wrote the section about dependency injection, so that was a pretty good. Fairly even description of all the different systems, and we've got a lot of very smart people that have very specific domain knowledge that write a very specific section, and then other people PR it if there's any problems with that. So it's all worked out fairly well, I think.
Yeah, it really has. But yeah, I want to make clear that I started it and I wrote the very initial content, but then obviously once Phil came on board, we really started delegating to the industry experts. Because obviously I don't know everything. Don't claim to, but I do want to make sure we have the best information available. Oh, I know, but it's hard to be humble.
Laravel, man. I mean, of course you know everything.
But
I mean, when you're like me and Josh, and 95% of everything, it's very difficult to cover up the other 5%.
That's true.
A quick sidetrack for anyone watching: there's an awesome argument between Matt Frost and his beard happening on Twitter right now.
Oh, is that the beard novelty account?
Yeah, short white beard.
I saw that earlier today.
It's beautiful.
We've totally jumped the shark as a community. I just want to say that.
Hey, that is Phil's favorite phrase. Phil,
Jump
tell
the
us about
shark.
your history.
Is it really?
Phil, do you spend...
It came up in a
Phil's
recent
not
episode,
actually-
and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I have no idea what that phrase means, and someone explained, and I
You watch
laughed.
Happy Days, right? Yeah.
Phil is not actually locked out of the country. He's just been on tvtropes.org for the last 3 months, clicking through links.
I don't think they have happy days in England, though. They just have, like, sad rainy days.
That's true. That was a bad joke.
Wow, he really is going for it with his beard. The thing I'm sad about is that whoever set up this fake beard account couldn't even be bothered to get a photograph of his beard on there. How many photographs have you seen with Matt Frost's massive fucking beard?
Well,
and you
I
couldn't
think
get one of those photographs for this Twitter account?
The egg is appropriate because the beard has now just been reborn. So it needs to hatch as a new beard.
Okay.
But I concur. There is absolutely no... I will point out also there's only one follower I know, and that's Coder Rabbi. So I would not be surprised if he is if he's behind. Actually,
You're
sorry.
right.
There's only one follower in this account. It is Coder Rabbi. All right, I think we just cracked that one wide open. 6.5 novelty accounts done.
Boom. All right, so PHP the Right Way, I guess, is kind of done. Apart from to mention that we have a book. There is a copy of the book. It's completely free. Once again, I mentioned there's some politics that comes up now and then. It's usually 2 or 3 people that for some reason try and complain about PHP the Right Way. I've never quite worked out why, but when we released the book, some people freaked out and they're like, oh, they're trying to get money from all these people that have submitted all this work. Not even at all. Basically, me and Josh have not ever seen and will never see a penny from it. but the book is completely free. It's exactly the same content as the website. Basically, I've got some shitty PHP regex command line script that I run every arbitrary number of months, and it updates the book. But it's pretty much the same copy as the book.
LeanPub or just a PDF file?
It's just LeanPub, I use LeanPub for my other book, which is available, but I realize it's quite a good system. So it basically it's kind of tricky. It converts GitHub Markdown to LeanPub Markdown, which mostly is fine, but there's some really fucking awful stuff in there. So I'll put a link to the link in the show notes to the shitty PHP script I wrote. But basically, it's the same content, and it's just in PDF or EPUB or Mobi. I don't know what that is. And you can get that for free. If you choose to donate any money, it goes to our selected cause, which is the EFF, which keeps the internet free and open and less NSA-ish theoretically for everyone. So grab a copy of that for free or whatever. But that's have you
had any trouble with some Vietnamese guys from Texas, or are they plagiarizing things?
What the fuck are you talking about?
The drunk incident with it.
I know what that is. That's the Laravel 4 cookbook.
So those guys haven't been causing any trouble here. Just one of the...
Not so far.
Okay.
No, I called them on their shit publicly, and then basically everyone stopped partnering with them. I withdrew my bundle. Everyone else withdrew their bundles, and then basically it was proven that they were a sham.
Now, when you say you called them out, are you saying that? Are you talking about the PHP Jerk website that you're organizing? Are you admitting to running the?
No, I helped.
Go on. Yes.
That PHP Jerk website.
He helped call them out in Phil's exact writing language, but under a different account.
All right.
I helped call them out through tweets and through other various things. I helped. I got emails sent to various people. Somebody else who happens to be called Philip and who runs a fake PHP Jerk website also happened to write about how much he hates them. But I wish that was me. He did it very well. Anyway, I wish I was one of these PHP accounts.
You would make a horrible Batman.
I'm Bruce Wayne. Oh.
No, it wouldn't be Batman. It'd be like, I'm Phil, man. And everyone would be like, yeah, Phil, we know it's you. I'd be like, how did you guess?
It's the trail of cider cans behind you.
Which reminds me, on to number 3. So, next question is, this is one that Josh, you brought up, and it was the Laravel versus PHP community stuff in general, which is obviously something I've touched on in the past, and I don't want to give another rant because we've all seen them before. But how do you feel about the differences in the way that the Laravel community and the PHP community kind of represent themselves or interact or maybe label themselves? What are the differences to you?
Now, before you start, keep in mind that Phil had weeks' worth of emails based on this topic.
Did he? All right, so if you have any comments about what I say, email them to Phil. I'll be happy to help answer them. So I'm kind of surprised that there's so much conflict, I guess, for lack of a better word, that's going between the two. You know, on the one hand, you've got the general PHP community, which is all about components and sharing and, you know, what have you, and then you've got Laravel, which you've got Taylor's a great guy behind it, who's building this phenomenal system that just isn't quite, you know, as good as people would like regarding sharing and working with non-Laravel code. You know, I've talked with Taylor about this a little bit, and he just said he's not that interested in working on individual components. He's just interested in building kind of a nice, self-contained, big system. You know, and that's more power to him. So I don't really have an issue with it. You know, if he wants to do that, great. If you want to use Laravel, great. You know, if not, then you know, there's tons of other components out there. There's Slim. I hear that's really good, and what have you. So yeah, that's kind of my take. I mean, I don't really feel one way or the other. I'm not really sure what all the arguments about. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, that seems fair enough. For me, it was a little bit more. I don't want to say emotional, but there was a little bit more attachment to it for me because of a few things. Basically, with Laravel 3, I wrote an article a while ago saying, like, Laravel 3 is awesome. And it's just like, yes, it's awesome, but who cares to me? Because Laravel 3 was just another framework. There was Kohana, and there was Fuel, and there was Laravel. And there are all these frameworks that are just their own code that are completely isolated, and they are every single problem that's wrong with framework-specific code. They have their own bundles, modules, cells, sparks. They have their own, code installers. You have to port code to work with one and the other. That was where we were in 2011, 2012, and it was kind of shit, right? So for a while I was like, Laravel 3 is great, who cares? Fuel's alright, who cares? Whatever. And then for ages I was saying to Taylor, Eloquent's amazing. Eloquent's really good. Please release it as a composer package. And
Right.
I just trolled him so long. Like every time he released some other thing or whatever, write a blog post about Eloquent or anything else, I'd just be like, cool, let me know when I can use it. And I just kept on trolling him for ages. And eventually he came through on Skype one day and was like, oh yeah, so guess what? I've released Laravel 4 as a series of components. And I was like, hallelujah! Like, one of the most impressive frameworks is now available to everyone, for everyone to use as a series of composer components. That's exactly what I want. So I started using them, and I was like, actually, these are really hard to use. And he was like, don't worry about it. Version 4.0 will be kind of hard to set up, and then version 4.1 will be much easier. I was like, oh, okay, that seems fair. Cool, get version 4 out, then worry about it later. And then later came and it never happened, and 4.1 wasn't easier. And then eventually he was like, I just don't really care about it, but you can send pull requests if you want. And I was thinking, that's a lot of work. Like, the fact that I have to go through every single component in Laravel and then send pull requests to make them work like independently and with less bootstrap involved, that sounds terrible. Like, that's why I got out of the coding. I didn't have to be a framework developer, and now if I want things to work that way, I have to be a framework developer again. So I guess for me, it's just kind of my own shit. I could probably go and use Aura or other stuff, but it was a massive disappointment for me that it was initially meant to be a composer-based kind of component framework, and then as it was released, it was like, actually, I can't be fucked with that, so I guess I'll just go with.
I mean, isn't it still a composer-based framework just for itself, right?
It depends what you mean about composer-based, right? Because with Slim,
Well, it's got a lot of the Illuminate components. I guess is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, so with the Illuminate components, you can install those separately, but they usually require a fuckload of other components. So the example I use regularly is if you want to use the Illuminate component, then that requires the view system, which requires the Symfony HTTP kernel and a bunch of other stuff. So for me to interact even with like unit testing, the paginate, with Fractal, it requires the pagination system. That requires views, which requires helpers, which requires the support package, which needs a bunch of other shit, and it gets really tricky. But Jeremy, what's your take?
Why would a view system require the HTTP kernel?
So with the pagination system, it looks at the URL to find out if you have a query param. And again, this is something I've suggested. Like, I know I could just send a pull request.
Could be split up, but it's not, because the path of least resistance was just to read the URL.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's tricky, I know, because with all these decisions, I understand why they were made. I just wish they were different. And the answer always comes back to you have to send a pull request. Like, I'm the only fucking person in the world that cares about components working separately. But it very much is, yeah. For pagination to work, it needs the HTTP kernel so that it can look at it and then say, oh, you're on page 2. Where really, you could easily have some sort of setter that says set page num, and then you pass in 2. Right.
But Phil, I think this is a good time to mention Anthony Ferrara's post this morning about the fire truck. You know what I'm talking about?
Hang on a second. Somebody has got like a dog running around. Or something.
That's me. Hold on. Let me.
Okay. So
I have a no pets policy in my apartment, so it's certainly not I.
So, recent news on PHP Town Hall: Phil Sturgeon hates animals.
Yep. And if it's children, they can go out in the yard as well. I mean,
I do. The ambush journalism is just right around the corner.
My wife got my dogs there, so we should be good. Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Yeah, but I was bringing up Anthony Ferrara's post this morning about the fire truck, about the guy who wrecked the fire truck, and you should say thank you because he showed up to help. Even though he did kind of wreck things. And I think that very much applies to Laravel.
I hadn't read that. Can you give this a quick?
Yeah, sure. So like there was a fireman, and I think Anthony used to be a fireman, and he was saying that one day this guy wrecked a fire truck, and the guys on his squad were kind of making fun of him, and the captain came over and he was like, thank you. The guy was like, well, what do you mean? I wrecked the truck. And he's like, well, not everybody's going to volunteer and show up to fight fires. you showed up. You wrecked the truck. You make mistakes, sure, but you showed up. So thanks. Yeah, so that was a really cool story. And it's all about open source and showing up to help. And you get a lot of people who make fun of you or say you're crap or whatever, but they're not necessarily showing up to do the job. So.
So is that the sort of thing that Anthony talks about now that he's not on internals? He just bangs on about trucks.
Apparently so, yeah.
Sorry, lorries actually.
The fire lorry.
No, it was a quite an excellent parable.
I need to read that. I didn't spot that.
Yeah, it was a great story. Yeah.
So was the point that I should show up and be a fireman?
Yep. The point is that you shut up and then go help build Laravel.
As project maintainers, like a pull request comes in. This happens all the time on Doctrine. Like a pull request comes in, and it needs massaging, or there's not a test case and stuff like that. So, but you still have to be graceful for the person. Like even if you end up not taking their code, you thank them for the effort. They brought it to your attention, and they did like the starting work. And maybe they don't have the facility, like they can't go all the way. But you can just pick up on that and give them the kudos. And so, yeah, Louis Cordoval is going to go nuts here, but his Gush project, which he's been running around promoting, has like the backpadding stuff built into it, where like you're managing your pull requests from command line, and you just thank people automatically, and which maybe takes some of the personal stuff out of it. But it's like baked in, like that's part of the managing an open source project is like thanking your contributors and getting them involved and feeling appreciated.
Have you ever seen Phil manage open source? Because it's almost the exact opposite.
I saw him call the guy an asshat last week.
Did I actually say asshat, or did I?
Said asshat in the. So I didn't want to bring this up, but it didn't really abide by the code manifesto.
Was it? Did that asshat deserve it? Is the real question.
Well, I believe he was threatening to sue you, so I'm not gonna make any assumptions there. I'm just gonna stay out of it. My lawyer advised me to not get involved in this.
I think I covered it briefly on the last episode, which is yet to air, with this ridiculous guy who came in, was being rude to everybody. And when I think someone's being rude, that fucking says a lot. This guy came in who's being rude, he was shouting everyone down, being a dick, really producing some really great code and sending us pull requests with that great code. And I was happy about that. But at the same time, he's being a knob. So it was kind of tricky. And eventually he ended up forking it and going off somewhere else, and there was all sorts of problems, and he tried he got a lawyer involved, and it was ridiculous. But aside all of that, he was doing some good work, and we were grateful. And I think it's always a difficult relationship between the pull requester and the pull requestee, right? Taylor has helped me out a lot in the past, which is why I'm not going to grump about him when I make these complaints and observations. It's not like, fuck Taylor. It's just like, in a perfect world, everything would be great. He helped me out a lot recently with, I started doing some pull request, and I couldn't quite work out how to do everything. I did like 70% of it, and he just did the other part of it, which is really helpful. And I was only talking about all of that stuff to give Jeremy enough time to replace his image with a picture of that guy. The deal with it guy. Yeah, that guy sucks. But no, it's a tricky one. You've got to try and work out if you can. People can't just go, I demand this code, so you should write this code. And people can't just go, you can't just say, pull request to STFU every single time. But you can't expect everyone to do everything, and you can't expect the maintainers to do everything. It's a really fine line between being over-expecting and being lazy and just being being a good open source guy.
There we go.
Wonderful.
Sorry.
I don't know. Josh, how do you deal with pull requests? When people want a feature that you have no interest in writing, what do you do?
Well, with all the other stuff I have going on, I typically ignore it, which I shouldn't do. But no, I try to, ideally I'll try and give a nice response and explain thanks, but here's why I don't want to use it. I do strictly, I don't pull in anything I don't want. 'Cause it's hard keeping slim what it is and keeping it small and slim.
See what you did there.
There you go. Yeah, I had to keep up with all your puns, man. But yeah, that's how I try to be nice. I try and give an explanation. Yeah. So, but a lot of times I just don't get around to answering it because I'm busy. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
And for PHP the Right Way, I just depend on Phil to answer.
Yeah, it's quite simple. You just say, "I hate your idea. It's stupid, but here's why," and then they feel much happier. Yeah. Definitely. So of the topics we have left, we're actually doing pretty well, and we are kind of getting towards time, but only because I've rambled on in between. So if you guys have another 10, 15, then we have a few things left to cover.
My schedule is entirely clear. You have me until the morning.
Sweet. It is.
Right.
It's currently the morning for me. It's 2 a.m. already. So that's why I have this facial hair again. This is a running theme with the podcast. It's obviously
Same here.
I shaved this morning.
in the past 2 hours.
Yeah, I shaved this morning, and that's why this came from.
Matt's beard is hatching already.
I bet his whole face is just quivering, ready, and then like in 24 hours. Onto the PHP League. So from one bullshit elitist project to another bullshit elitist project, PHP the Right Way and the PHP League. Both have been considered by, fortunately, a minority to be projects that pretend we're better than everybody else, and I feel like the PHP League is obviously another one that people could easily tar with that same brush. So PHP the Right Way, like we said, a lot of people thought that PHP the Right Way was, this is the only true way to write your code, and really it's, here are a few different ways that you could write your code, and here are some that you definitely fucking shouldn't. PHP League was meant to be an idea, which is, here is, a lot of code is like phpclasses.org, basically all shit. Manual. He'll shout at me for that one, but I've already explained in full that I think 95% of the code on their website is fucking awful and needs to be deleted as soon as possible. With the PHP League, we held ourselves to a much higher standard, one that was potentially unreachable, and we tried to work out a way in which we could make code that was the best possible code that we could. It has to be like 100% tested. It has to be all these various things. We just want to make it the best that we can, and better than the average, which is what makes it extraordinary. Because the average, if the average is phpclasses.org and random shit on SourceForge, then becoming better than average seems like a fairly reasonable goal. And we defined some rules of how we could get there. So, like I said, unit test, use all the standards, and a bunch of other stuff. So that's that. Josh, I've tried to harangue you into being part of the PHP League, but so far you've evaded.
I've been ignoring your emails, Phil.
Check your spam filters.
Holy crap, there's like 1,000. No, yeah, he sent me a few emails about it. I didn't want to move Slim over because I think.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but you know, if I can get some time around to it, I'd be willing to move the upload component over to it. And I know there was another guy on Twitter you were talking with a while back that had another good library that we're talking about merging potentially. So that's definitely an option. I know that there's Scott Robertson, I want to say is his name, on Twitter. He's been working on a PR for the upload component to integrate one of the fly system from the PHP League. To really help push, obviously files to a lot of different places. So that's in the works, and I think that would be a good opportunity when that's released to merge them in. So. Yeah,
that'd be handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Slim would not be the right sort of thing for the project. I mean, a lot of what the project's trying to do is it's weird. Like if you look at these other communities, like the Python and the Ruby community, if you want to use the OAuth2 library, what do you use? You install the OAuth2 gem. There's one of them. It's fucking brilliant, right? it's so simple. Like because it's a smaller community and there are less people that have tried to reinvent the wheel. They're like, oh, I need an OAuth2 gem. I'll just install that. But if you look around. If you look around PHP, 2 or 3 years ago, and you want to find some OAuth2 code, there's a zip on some guy's blog, there's some bullshit on SourceForge, there's 5 bullshits on PHP classes, and you just have all this terrible code everywhere. And now, luckily, we've got Composer. There's like 2 or 3 that might be okay, but all you can really base it on is like, well, this one has the most installs, so this is probably the least shit. And then you realize it hasn't got any tests and it's on version 0.1 for a year, and there's just so much crap on there. So what we're trying to do is help bring people together, because we have a lot of these different people. Like I said, people have noticed Fly System and they're trying to integrate it with your code. You were building an upload class and somebody else is building an upload class. I'm trying to smash you guys together so you can both work on the same sort of thing. And it's not trying to kind of take over the world, but it's like we should all stop producing multiple different things that are all kind of shitty, and see if we can both work together on making one that's good. So I feel like
what are you saying about my code, Phil?
That you need some fucking help. Jeremy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Little story. Back many years ago when I actually made web applications, in the Symfony community, when we had bundles, and all the bundles needed namespaces and stuff, and people didn't want to use their actual names as a namespace because it's weird. It's weird. It's like capital J Mikola is like, I don't want to use that as namespace. So they created a Friends of Symfony GitHub organization, and they just started so the first thing they ported there was like the user management bundle, which is still like the most popular Symfony, just kind of like in Symfony 1 that was also the most popular bundle. But then they had like an OAuth library, the REST bundle for Symfony lives in there, and it's just people from all different companies, and they kind of, so at a couple of years in the past, I managed one of the projects in there and handed it off, and now some guy in Australia takes over, and he's running the Elasticsearch bundle. So there's definitely a need. It serves a good purpose to have a community. I think in your case, like PHP League, that's crossing the framework barriers. So maybe it's more controversial, I guess, because I remember some of the original feedback on that was like, oh, you guys are a bunch of elitists and stuff. Whereas with the FOSS thing, everybody was like, oh, well, this is good. We know those guys already worked on the core framework, so they're established folks. So was the where were the complaints coming from? Is it because were you guys all from one pocket of the PHP community?
No, it wasn't.
How diverse were you?
The diversity was me, Matt Frost, Alex Bilby. There were a couple of CodingMatter guys, a couple of Laravel guys. There have been a few people that aren't necessarily tied to any one framework or well known by any one framework. I think that the original elitist comments.
The original website, the phrasing on the website with the language.
Yeah. So the original website, I smashed together. I wasn't drunk or anything. Let's not just assume that, but I definitely. Why would anyone assume that?
Sure.
I think I smashed together some fairly bullshit wording that was just kind of mostly as a joke to Alex Bilby, because he was really my partner getting off the ground. And I think my wording was a little bit kind of elitist in some respects. It was a little bit jokey. It's like we are making the best code we can. Here are the rules that we follow. But then it was things like. Hop on here for IRC. Don't demand too much from our time. We have to have holidays too. And a lot of it was kind of silly and messing around because we hadn't actually released the website yet. It was still just literally, I bought a domain, I pushed some code up on GitHub. I think that code might have linked to the website, and we were planning on getting that website done. So I pushed up a bullshit joke just to get Alex started. He then was a day or two late on he said oh, I'm going to fix it and make it better, and then we both kind of forgot. And then 3 days later, Anthony's like, you're a bunch of elitist douchebags. And I was like, oh, fuck, wait, who's looking at that? Stop. And and it was pretty awkward because it just wasn't ready. It wasn't ready at all. So since then, we definitely cleaned up the text and kind of the point of it. And it was we are striving the best that we can to make things that are extraordinary. There are many different, metrics that make something good quality. And here are the metrics that we abide to that we think are good. You might think other metrics are good. You might use the pair standard for some reason. Fuck you, but okay. So we were trying to do that. And Jeremy, as you pointed out, the problem comes from when you have these packages, someone makes it for a while, and then they get bored, or they have to do something else, and then it just languishes, and then someone goes, okay, I'll make my own, and then 5 people make their own, or there's 3 forks from the same project.
Much better if you could hand it off to somebody to pick it up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're a community of friends that all know each other or that all work together, and we've got a little email mailing list that anyone can join and help out, or just send pull requests. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, which may well fucking happen, I keep cycling in the dark. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, there's 10 other people that can take over any of my packages. If Alex gets hit by a bus, we can all help. We can all cover it. So all you ever have to do is rely on League CSV. And if the guy running that package vanishes, you're still good. And you can always, the project managers can always switch and change and quit and do new things, and you still have the same group. So
I just want a point of information. You said League CSV, so you actually have a first-class PHP library for working with CSV files. Is that
yes.
true?
Yes.
Want to make sure I heard
it's
that.
lovely. It is wonderful.
Well, I didn't know that. That's cool. I'll have to check it out. I've been using the, I don't know how you pronounce it, the KEBOOLA thing on packages.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I'll check it out.
I mean, again, it might be wonderful, but if no one can pronounce the fucking vendor namespace, then no one's going to install it. Right. Oh, we should use the what is that? Or League/CSV. I mean, which you want to use?
10,000 people disagree with you, Bill. But yeah.
What good are UTF-8 characters if you're not going to use them all? Come on.
That's true. Oh, yeah.
This is roughly where everyone in Russia thinks I'm an asshole. But I'm just saying, you guys have complicated names.
Should we use emoji? Let's just start using emoji.
Yeah.
Well, the Unicode snowman is a completely valid PHP symbol that was making the rounds on Twitter once again last week. It's that time of year again.
The most wonderful time.
Oh, so the last thing, if anyone, sorry, I'm talking through a pen. The last thing that was on my list, Josh, again, this is one that you brought up, and it was about Chris Hutchins' recent email newsletter. Wonderful. That third side is really kicking in. So would you like to introduce this and talk about it a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. This is kind of more of a serious note, which may be unusual for this podcast, but Chris Hart just sent out a newsletter a few days ago, and if you don't subscribe to it, definitely go and subscribe. It's an excellent newsletter. Doesn't come out every day, but he has good stuff to say when he does say it. This particular newsletter was about him having to prioritize what he does with his job, with his softball leagues, with his family.
Magic cards.
Magic the Gathering. Yep, there you go.
I was really worried that he was giving up magic cards.
I don't think he'd do that.
No.
But yeah, just how he had to kind of cut back to kind of stay sane and make time for what's important and kind of not do what's not important.
Like a true geek, he gave up the one physical activity.
and it was slow pitch.
Dude is like 8
Don't
feet
make him
tall,
mad.
and he plays slow pitch.
He looks stronger than that. I don't know. Guess not.
Anyway, yeah, I actually resonate with that a lot. I'm like notoriously bad about overcommitting to things.
Yep.
Part of it is just because I love new things. Like I'll get super excited about some new idea or some new project or whatever, and then I just hate like the monotony of finishing in that. And then part of this too is like I have a lot of friends that do cool things and they need help with this or that, and so I'll try to. Who are you winking at off camera? It's awkward. Anyway. So,
who's winking at what?
Josh was doing some kind of weird eyebrow thing. I don't know.
Are there Swedish lads over there?
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm pretty bad at overcommitting, so I definitely resonate with that a lot. It's I've had to do that several times, and it's hard.
Yeah, that really is. Like, I also get to the point too where I get kind of burned out. If I'm just pushing myself really hard a lot, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I picked up photography. It's just something wildly different that I don't really know much about, and just kind of something I can have fun with, and not stress over, and what have you.
Now, do you not stress over it? Because I've thought about that before.
Stress about what?
Photography, because I think I would just like geek out over it so much that it would just eat away hours out of my day.
Well, I'm not that big into it. Like I don't spend hours a day at it, but it is a fun little hobby, and I do geek out over like the different kind of glass you can buy and what have you. But yeah, I don't do it professionally enough to worry too much about it. So not yet anyway. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's just something wildly different. Yeah, Jeremy, what's up?
Is this like posting selfies on Instagram, or are you actually buying camera hardware and?
No, I've got a Canon 6D with a 35L, and I'm saving for a 70 to 200 f2.8.
That's a lot of acronyms, so I'm gonna assume that you know what you're doing.
It's an expensive lens, but I've got to save up for it. I don't want to get it.
I have this is my girlfriend's camera. This still has batteries in it. There we go.
Nice.
Do that fancy shit right there. Especially you have to save with all that, PHP the Right Way book money coming your way.
That's right, man. It's not going to the EFF.
Where do you
just
think-
falling apart.
where do you
Do it,
think
do
that
it.
came from?
Well, that's 1 quid a can, though. You must be stockpiling those.
That's the one thing I love about being back in the UK. You can just buy your entire body weight in cider for less than like $10. It's insane. Anyway, so yeah, what the hell were we just talking about? Cameras.
Being burned out. Overcommitting, being burned out.
Yeah. Have
I
you
mean,
ever been
today-
burnt out, Phil? Because it seems like you never stop.
I know.
Dude,
It's a machine.
Today is a perfect example. Today I woke up at 9 o'clock, which isn't, that's not really a point in itself. These people that write these articles, before, the things that, famous, successful people do before 6 o'clock. All I do before 6 o'clock is drink and then hopefully pass out at 6. But I woke up.
9 a.m. sounds early. Was that early or late?
9 a.m. is early for me, if I'm honest. It's usually 10
it's
or
early
11.
for me too.
I got up at 9 or 10 or some shit around there. And then I had open source commitments. Like my inbox was fucking spammed with all this stuff. I released a new version of Fractal, which is another League project. I released a new version of Fractal. Apparently, somebody had some really loose composer requirements in their projects, so I broke other people's projects. That's my fault, apparently. So my inbox is spammed with all these people going, "How dare you release new versions of your code, you prick!" So I went through and fixed a bunch of other packages. And then some people were complaining at me that I hadn't documented it. Just because they noticed that that tag was available on GitHub, they'd started demanding documentation immediately before I even blogged about it. So I'm like, fine, I'll write some fucking documentation. Then I realized that I had to get episode 25 up, so I pushed that up. And then I had all these fucking things happening. And I didn't start doing client work until about 3, 4 o'clock. That's not that rare for me, that I genuinely, like, the reason I quit CodeIgniter and Fuel PHP and a bunch of other projects last year, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, was I started working for Capture, and I realized that most of my fucking life was spent handling GitHub bullshit. And it had been that way for a long time. Like, I made an entire career for a while. I will wrap this up in a minute, don't worry. But I spent, for a year or two of my life, I spent my income, my entire career was random, Pyro CMS work, random add-on sales, random open source projects getting me more freelance work, and all this kind of random just internet stuff. And then once I got a job, I was like, oh fuck, I have to get rid of this stuff. So I quit as many things as I could. I quit CodeIgniter, I quit Fuel PHP, I made all of my for sale add-ons completely free for everyone for Expression Engine and all that stuff. And I got rid of a lot of stuff, and that was great. And my inbox cleared up, and I had a much easier life. But then over the last 6 months, I've started releasing more open source code again. So it's not just CodeIgniter bullshit libraries, it's Fractal and other League stuff. And I've realized that I've started taking on so much work that, again, I have these demands and expectations of me that I can't fill reasonably whilst trying to do freelance work. And because I'm trying to be fucking nice guy Phil Sturgeon, I'm doing all this freelance work, I'm doing all this open source work before the freelance work. So I'm not getting paid that often, and I'm just fucking making a martyr of myself, trying to fix all this stuff because other people expect it to work perfectly and want new features. It's fucking ridiculous, and I can't keep doing it.
Did you just say nice guy, Phil Sturgeon?
He exists. He exists. If you look at a few of my recent replies to people, I'm being fucking nice on GitHub. I haven't got enough energy left to be negative. I can't do it.
Phil, at what point did you get audited by the IRS for not claiming all that miscellaneous income?
They haven't asked yet.
They have to wait until he moves back to New York.
So, I guess serious question for Josh. So I have no idea what Ben Edmonds does right now for a living. Josh, you said that you end up working, like you dog food slim. What are you? You're a smither?
Stripper.
Stripper. Okay, that's. I'm not gonna.
In Vegas. You can come see me sometime.
I respect your decisions. So Josh, you said you dog food Slim while at work, and Taylor actually talked a little bit of this at Laravel. They were talking about his boss at whatever company sponsors him.
Ian Lansman at Userscape?
Yes, there you go, Userscape. So Ian was giving a talk on, like, say, allocate your developers like one day a month or something like that. And so Taylor obviously gets more because he's special, so he gets like a day a week. I remember at like previous company, back when before Phil and I were in the same building, and you still owe me lunch, by the way. When I was involved in Symfony, it was like trying to make excuses to work on open source stuff during work hours. And now I absolutely love my job because it's like everything is on GitHub, and it's all very wonderful. But how do you? I would think it'd be very difficult to put in the same commitment to open source, knowing that it could just be like extra hobby time.
For me, it kind of
like,
is.
It's fine when you're young, but like you get older and you're like, well, I
a life and
there's other things that I want to do.
Right. No, it's definitely a battle to find time because you do have your 9-to-5 day job. That pays the bills. It's got to take priority. I love where I work. The work's a lot of fun, but I also love working on Slim and new media campaigns where I work is very accommodating. Like if we have some downtime that we don't necessarily have some pressing client projects, I'll push forward on Slim a little bit. I'll add some features that I maybe could use to benefit some of the client work that we have coming up. But it's a great place, and they definitely accommodate a lot of my open source work. And by the way, I'd like to kind of shout out to new media campaigns because we're actually looking for some developers at the moment. So if you want to work with me, look and apply. So But I hope this answers your question.
Smooth.
Yeah, pretty good. So Ben, what about so you and Phil? How do you do you have to like make excuses to do open source work, or how does that work?
Ben, go.
I have dogs going fucking apeshit, so excuse that noise in the background. I haven't done open source work on the clock in a couple of years, probably. I worked at a company that used IONOF, and we needed a lot of changes to it, back in the CodeIgniter days. So that was probably the most of my on-the-clock open source work. Now, I haven't really done shit in a couple of years that's useful to anyone. I do things here and there. I'll get the idea for something and I'll hack on it, but it's really like in cycles. So like I'll get really almost addicted to it for a month, and then I'll take 6 months off of not doing much but maintenance work. Yeah, that's about how it goes. I still do a shit ton of maintenance work on IONOF, surprisingly. Like, who still uses CodeIgniter? But apparently people do.
Wasn't the last time IONOF good 2011?
Last time it was good.
That sounds incredibly disrespectful, Phil. I would refer you to the Code Manifesto.
No, I actually did some pretty big updates. Like a couple months ago, I updated the hashing algorithms and some stuff like that to keep it up.
SHA-1 now? MD5 SHA-1?
No, it's still MD5, but it's a random salt now.
Plus salting is always helpful. No, big user of IONOF. Unfortunately, with PyroCMS, we were randomly...
Unfortunately, fuck you, man.
If you let me finish my fucking sentence, I never interrupt you apart from most of the time. We were unfortunately stuck on some random dev commit of it. So PyroCMS is stuck on a dev commit of IONOF and a dev commit of CodeIgniter 3.0 because it's never going to get released. So we have these two dev dependencies that are just kind of shitty, and we were scared to upgrade them properly. So we were using IONOF for a while, and we finally ditched it for Century because it was like PHP 5.3. Woo! But I am surprised to... Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, speaking of dev dependencies, that's how I imagine life is like for most of the Doctrine MongoDB ODM users. I'm terribly sorry.
You having a hard time with that recently? Is it one of those awkward phases?
5 years, still haven't hit 1.0. It's
shit.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah, it is awkward. I'm sorry. Let's change the subject, actually. That's
Yeah, so on a more fun note, I am like 3/4 of the way through with a composer-based generic PHP version of IONOF.
Wow.
Because every time I use Sentry, I die a little inside because their doc sucks so bad.
Huh.
So there's that. But it's been at 3.5 for 2 years now. So.
Is this going to be Ben versus Ben? Because Ben Corlett versus Ben Edmonds in a fight. I don't know what's going to happen. I've met both of you. I know that most people have a height advantage on you, Ben, but Ben has a height advantage on me. So I figure you're going to get...
He's pretty lanky, so I
Ben
feel
Edmonds
like
is taller than
you?
No. Ben Corlett is taller than me. Ben Edmonds is not taller than anybody.
No, he's not. I'm sorry, Ben. It's true.
These are just facts. No, but yeah. So Ben
sounds like a tall order.
Jeremy, you really have to stop being short with Ben. That's not fair.
I've had it up to here with you guys.
It's time to make another drink.
You guys are a bunch of hiders.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, that's a stretch. Sorry.
That's fantastic. I'm going to ring the pun bell. We are done with puns. But no, Ben, like, you were talking about your involvement. Like, how do you get paid to do open source? Like, where does the money come from? How do you find the time to do it?
I basically just neglect my wife.
How does she feel about that?
She likes a lot of TV shows now. She's kind of used to not seeing me.
I hear Fargo's good.
I'll recommend it for the next time I need to do something.
Oh, guess what? Ben Corlitt's just hopped up on Skype. He's not watching it. He doesn't know we're talking about him.
So there's actually no coincidence to report.
There's literally no
coincidence
coincidence.
there.
He's just started talking to me on Skype. Mostly because he's Australian, and this is roughly when he wakes up, the lazy bastard. Yeah, sorry, carry on talking about Fargo. I just interrupted you.
So yeah, for listeners who don't know, I'm pretty short. So yeah, there's that. Me and Matt Frost are actually probably gonna I think we should have like a celebrity deathmatch kind of thing one day. He's got a couple inches on me, but I can grab his beard once he grows it back out.
He doesn't have it. Oh, okay.
It's not going to take a
Well,
moment.
now he has
You
no incentive to grow it
see
out.
him
It's
without the beard.
going to give him a disadvantage in the match.
Your backup plan
It's true.
your backup plan to being able to grab his beard is that you have to learn how a pugil stick works, so you can, that'd be fine.
Is that
You
an
know-
English thing? What is that?
Pugil sticks, like Gladiators, the old Gladiators TV show.
Ah, okay.
It's a lot of
Yeah, they
British
have the
terminology.
They have the big sticks, and
If you had said big stick, I would have known what you were talking about.
you need a big fighting. Fuck off,
Billy,
then. Anyway,
you need to come back to America immediately. You're devolving.
Yeah. I keep saying English things, and it's ridiculous. I'm really confused with my
Things are actually
terminology
getting
and my
worse
language.
by the moment.
Yeah, look at him. It's awful. The trouble for me is that I'm in this really weird fucking nether region between English and American terminology. And I've got to a point where I was out walking, when I was back in America, I was walking around with my girlfriend, and sometimes I translate myself. So sometimes I say the American version, sometimes I say the English version, and sometimes I get trapped in the middle where I have no idea. And what I ended up doing was like, oh, watch out for the garbage van, lorry, machine, truck, rubbish, van, skip, truck, lorry. And all I just couldn't, I just kept trying to throw words in it, and we both just stopped and stared at each other blankly. And then eventually I was like, garbage truck. And she was like, oh. But I just start throwing 100 words at it, trying to get any that stick, and it doesn't make any fucking sense.
I believe Davey Shafik has similar issues. Because he will just spontaneously adopt a British accent and then go back to being American again.
He does it
He
whenever
actually
he feels
adopts
like it.
any accent he's around. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, basically we have this ongoing joke. I think it's a joke where I think he's Irish, but he keeps switching accents on me, and the more drunk we both get, the more we both randomly change our accents around. So every now
Are
and
you
then
both
I'll
eventually Australian?
to any American, we're both instantly Australian. Yes, that's how that works.
When I try and do foreign accents, I find it irrevocably comes back to some bastardized Irish thing.
Yeah. Well, that's fairly accurate for the English. We've been bastardizing the Irish for a long time. I think we're pretty close to being done on the show notes. I've got no more notes written down. So
Yeah.
Does that mean Q&A time?
that does mean Q&A time, and most of the questions have.
I'm gonna wear my elephant hat. Sorry.
Quick question: how many of you guys are going to Laracon EU?
Not me.
All right. Well, you guys suck.
Are you invited?
I've invited myself. They don't know that I'm speaking, but I will be. I will be.
How does that work?
I'm just going to turn up and announce.
Will anyone be listening though? That's the.
I might be in a cupboard, but I've decided that I'm going. Funnily enough, I'm going to Cake Fest the week before it, which is quite around the corner. So I'm just going to be at Cake Fest doing my little talk about APIs that I've done 7 times.
You should totally make a Jose mask and just wear that the entire time.
What's hilarious is that Cake Fest is the Jose show.
Is it? Is he
Yeah,
actually popular somewhere?
He's pretty big.
Somewhat.
He's pretty big in that. So we've been having a New York PHP meetup with Daniel Cousineau. I don't know how to say his last name. and so Jose's been going there. He is big in the cake world.
But he's not big in any other world.
I always
No.
pictured him big in
He's a
like
short man. He's a short
the
man.
He is a tiny
homeless
man.
world.
He's taller than Ben, but he's pretty short.
I don't feel like that's true. I've spent a lot
We
of time
should
with
fight.
Jose, and I feel like
I want to fight him.
they're both tiny people.
Sorry, have we had any questions about my giant red elephant?
No,
Why
I'm
do you
sorry,
have
Jeremy.
giant red elephant?
I'm totally humble bragging here. Actually, won this
No.
as ZenCon. Okay,
None at all.
that's sad.
So I'm going to call it time because my bladder is calling it time.
Does that mean Q&A? Do we go to Q&A? Or is it
Yeah,
officially
we-
time? Is there
This
no Q&A?
entire episode has been Q&A, Jeremy.
Have we taken audience questions?
You just want
yes, we have.
someone to. You just want
Oh, I'm
someone to
sorry.
ask you about your hat.
I had a question for you, Jeremy. It's very important.
Yes.
What is up with the hat?
This is a Zend elephant. It's the big guy.
Did you cut a hole in the Zen elephant's ass so that you could?
No,
wear
I
him?
could wear it as a hat.
Okay.
So I also have the little one, but he's much bigger.
I could wear the little one as a hat.
And then we got these guys too. So
Do they
I
take
do-
up half of
I need
your?
to explain to my girlfriend that I'm not playing with dolls.
This is work, honey. It's work.
This is work. These are mascots.
So we have a question from the audience. From
Bo Simonson does not actually care about my elephant.
No.
Thank you.
K Woodfriend on IRC says, "What's with the giant red elephant?" I'm not sure if we answered that already.
Yeah, prize at ZenCon. The MySQL guy actually pulled my business card out of a bucket at Davey Shaffik's booth, and so I won this.
Did he shed a little tear when he saw your Mongo shirt?
Yeah, he's like, oh, this is a web scale elephant.
Oh, actually, the one last bit of thing we have is I would like to do one more topic if we can do 5-10 minutes on it, just because we've bullshitted a lot through this episode and we might have to edit it down a little bit. The one thing that was left to be discussed, and we will do 5-10 minutes and then we'll call it a day. I'm going to introduce this like I haven't just spent a whole minute saying how we've wasted this episode. So another thing I want to talk about was going to conferences as non-speakers and whether you think that's worth it or not. We mentioned this a little bit on the notes we were passing around before the show, and a lot of the time I've been to conferences as the speaker and as the attendee, and most of the time the networking is wonderful. I really enjoy going just because you get to meet people like Jeremy Mikola who start doing ridiculous videos with here's a random drink I just made that's fucking disgusting. But you get all these crazy experiences, meeting people in the community that you talk to via Twitter. Networking's great. I've had job opportunities come up. Sometimes it's also boring as fuck. I've been to certain conferences where I've spent a lot of money, or my boss has spent a lot of money. I haven't really learned that much, and I've just been kind of going there for the sake of showing face. So I have like a difference of how much I've really earned from conferences, and I just wondered what you guys thought about that. Maybe Josh, if you could go first.
Sure. Well, coming from the perspective of someone who's never been to a conference, I would have you'd have a hard time convincing me to pay more than probably $350, $400 to go to one of these things. Mainly because I've been to some smaller ones that are more kind of regional, very hyper-specific stuff. But I think the biggest thing from conferences will be networking and not necessarily talks. And I don't know how much I would get out of it personally. Now, if my company were willing to sponsor me to go, I mean, hey, that's great. But short of that, I don't know. I mean, I'd probably lean more towards the more local, smaller ones rather than the national, larger ones.
So I had just been talking to Chris Tankersley at I see him at a bunch of conferences now, and he's always says like, oh, he's on the hallway track, which is essentially like there's a couple of talks that he might go to over the course of the conference, but he's probably hanging out in the hallway, networking with people, or having there's usually uncons, and that's where some of the most interesting topics are, like spur of the moment. Because a lot of times the topics are picked so far in advance, so if there's something that just happened in the last 2 weeks, there's a higher chance that it would come up then. My first conference experience was actually going with Chris Walsmith to OzCon in 2011, and that is like something I would never in my life even want my company to spend. It's like probably like $1,500 a ticket to go to that. It's like a week-long conference. I ended up like learning, sat in at like Node.js workshops and stuff. It was like very educational, but the like commitment for some, like there's the conferences that are definitely like the local ones, so like Midwest PHP or Sunshine, which are very like reasonably priced. Then you have the more maybe like ZenCon or PHP Tech, which are priced in a higher range. They're also longer, many more tracks and stuff. But like I've never gone as just as a pure attendee, so it's hard to say like it's. If I was spending my own money, it's hard to say like I don't know, are these talks like how many talks are you going to where it's content that you wouldn't find on your own or online?
Right.
Yeah,
I kind of feel bad for some of my own, like I've been like in the last like 6 months maybe getting more dissatisfied with the talks I've been giving, where like I think I should like take a break and come up with something a lot more interesting. Like so like Igor Wheeler always comes up with like interesting topics and stuff like that. I feel like I'm kind of like riding coattails of previous content sometimes.
Igor makes us all look bad though.
Yes, he does.
We should just.
Well, he had a lot of time to read a lot of books, so.
Yeah.
So that might slow down now that he's working full time.
I've experienced 1 or 2 conferences just as an attendee. My general role now, because I'm an asshole, is that I don't go unless I'm speaking.
Sure. But where did you go as an attendee?
ToyoCon, and I think it was in Atlanta, just some kind of local conference. Yep. I guess it's against, myself, because I tend to speak a couple times a year. But in general, I would think it wouldn't be worth the travel cost to go to most conferences. But if it's a local conference...
If it is a local one that you can drive to and maybe not have to stay at the hotel, makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and maybe you didn't have to do a hotel, but, most local conferences are a couple $100, and then, maybe $400 for the hotels for 2 or 3 nights. That's probably worth it, but if you're going to add, like $600 in travel costs on top of that, plus, you're probably going to be out of work a week by the time you do all the travel. I really don't know if it's worth it. Maybe those super specific or something you're trying to get into. A lot of times, though, it's basic talks because you can't get so deep in a talk format unless you're doing like a workshop format. And most conferences shy away from workshop formats because who wants to sit there for 4 hours?
Right. Or it's like a separate track that you would purchase. So
yeah.
That's like a whole other...
Yeah. So I kind of struggle with that too. I don't know. Networking, though, is totally worth the money. $500 to meet a bunch of people that are going to be, kind of your colleagues and will help you throughout your career. It's totally worth it. And I tend to do the hallway track most of the time. I'll usually try to attend 2 talks a day, other than ones I give. But truthfully, like, I'm usually hungover until about noon. And when I get there, I'll do like a talk, and then I'll go chill somewhere for an hour or 2, talk to people in the hallway, and then I'll do like one more talk before the end of the day. But it's really mostly about networking. I'll try to catch like the newer talks, the ones that give like new technology. I've discovered a lot of like new technology that way because there'll be something on this, like say MongoDB back when that was new. There'd be a talk on that. And,
5 years ago.
Well, before we found out that it just dump stayed at the dead null occasionally.
It's fast.
But stuff like that, new technologies, it's pretty cool
Right.
for. But if I was just like going for general learning, I really don't think it'd be worth the expense.
So I've told a few people this in person, like talking at most recently like Tech and Ski PHP and stuff. Like if there's one conference that whether like even if I didn't get accepted, I would pay to go to the SymphonyCon in Spain just to like see everybody. Just because I like that. And actually, so there was another parallel in the email I sent earlier. It was like people were asking me like, what was my impression of Laracon? So I had not been to the DC one, but the New York one was like 2 weeks ago, and it actually felt a lot like the Symphony conference like 2 years ago, where it was still kind of an insular community. But around that time, 2 years ago, Fabian started having the conference being less about just like Symphony topics and more like cross-pollinating. So like half the talks at Laracon were not even about Laravel, which was and those were some of the talks that people really enjoyed, like expanding their horizons. And so I kind of like see that same pattern happening, I guess, with Laracon, where like the framework brings them into the conference, and then they end up getting exposed to a lot more than they originally anticipated.
That's almost probably an advantage that a framework-specific conference would have, because the general PHP conferences like Midwest or even Ski,
Right.
They kind of have to cover the basics of everything.
Right.
Or
And
so
so
framework specific, you can kind of dive into a niche, and then you can cover cooler things
exactly,
around that. You know?
So like they got their meaty, like write down intense Laravel talks on the first day, and then they also had these like the async React talk that I gave, or Igor blew everyone's mind with like Turing machines, the depression talk and stuff like this that I don't think anyone actually expected to get out of that weekend.
Yeah, we should do something about Igor.
Well, Chris Arches has posited that he is a from the hive mind. He's just a spore that's been implanted in our society.
The problem is probably just that most of us don't have like real deep CS knowledge, and so like I'm sure like the hardcore desktop programmers just laugh at us with us like like jQuery.
All right, guys, I gotta run. It's getting a little late here.
Yeah, we will have to wrap it up now anyway. So sorry for everyone that asked a question that didn't get it answered. We've run for 45 minutes longer than we should have done on the original recording. So thank you everybody that came along. It's been real fun recording it with you guys. We didn't have any arguments, so that's a first for the conference.
Remarkable.
For the podcast. So thank you very much, guys. This will be up soon, and talk to you soon.
Later.
Yeah.